Today we're going to talk about linking verbs. Linking verbs are useful, functional pieces of our language, but they're not very creative. They simply tie a word in the subject to a word in the predicate, and they mean nothing in and of themselves. I would challenge you to try to define a linking verb. Compare that to an action verb, which should be vivid and fairly easily definable. A linking verb is merely a placeholder. So a linking verb, the most common ones are forms of the verb to be. To be is an infinitive, and as you know, an infinitive is the word to plus a verb in its base form. And the 5 forms of to be are am, is, was, were, and are. So when you see those words with a subject, you know it's a linking verb. Additionally, the words been and being, when they are the final word in the verb phrase, are also linking verbs. Additionally, the words seem and become are linking verbs. Now, there are some words in the language that can function both as linking verbs and as action verbs, things like taste, for example. We're going to primarily be concerned with the words right up here. So I've written this paragraph that contains a lot of linking verbs, and you likely, when you do your writing, start out by using a lot of linking verbs, and that's okay to get your ideas down. But then in the editing process, you're going to want to go through and eliminate some of those linking verbs. Now, it's sort of unrealistic to eliminate every single linking verb from a piece of writing, but it's not unreasonable to expect that you limit them severely. And sometimes it's hard to find linking verbs. We don't see them, or we're unfamiliar with them. So one of the things that I do is I will do a search. So I will click on Find. Control F works as well. And I'll just type in the most common ones, is. And let's see what happens. You see all the yellow lights up, and I can see that I have all of these is's. Now, some of them are part of the word his, and that's a little bit unfair. But nevertheless, there's an is, there's a whole bunch of them. And I know that I'm going to need to go through and edit those. I'm also going to try the word are and see how many r's I have. Quite a few of those. And again, as you can see up here, this is part of the word care. So that doesn't count. Was. Well, that one doesn't count because that's part of, and there's only one was. I guess that's a good thing. Type in, whoops. Type it in over here, were, and we'll see how many words there are. Okay, not many. All right. So the idea is that you can easily search and search your paper to find those linking verbs. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to look at them, because sometimes if you have the word is and then a verb after it, then is a helping verb and not a linking verb. But here I have Telemachus is a smart young man. So is in this sentence is definitely a linking verb. So I'm going to mark that. This word is tying Telemachus to the word man. Here's another one, is. So the word is here is tying who to the word desperate. And then here's another is. But you'll notice that there's a verb after that. So who is forced to figure things out alone. Because is the first word in a verb phrase, this is functioning as a helping verb here and doesn't need to be eliminated. So let's look at that first sentence and see if I could rewrite that somehow. So I'm going to say, Telemachus is a smart young man who's desperate to find his place in the world, but who is forced to figure things out alone. If I were going to rewrite that, I might say, Telemachus, and then instead of using the word is, I'm going to make a smart young man into what's called an appositive phrase. A smart young man. And then instead of saying who is desperate, I'm going to say desperately seeks a place in the world. Okay. And then how am I going to get this idea about being forced to figure things out alone? I could keep that, but I'm going to change it a little bit, and I'm going to say even though he lacks the guidance of a father. So what I've done by changing this part of the sentence is I've taken away the the passiveness here, and I've made it very active. He lacks the guidance of a father. Okay? So that's my first sentence, and I don't have a single linking verb in there. Let's look at the second sentence. He seems to want to prove himself, but is inept at taking care of his own home. Okay, so let's examine that sentence. We know that seems is a linking verb, and then we've got another infinitive here, which is okay, and another infinitive, to want to prove. That seems like seems to want to prove a lot of words to get across one idea. So I'm going to mark that. I'll underline that so that I can see that I want to change that. We got another one over here because I've got a compound sentence. You see the fanboy right there, but the word is here is tying the pronoun he to the adjective inept. So that's definitely a linking verb. Okay, so how could I do this one? I would say something like, while he wants to prove himself, he is inept at taking care of his own home. Let's see. His inability to take action gives the suitors a chance to infest his home. All right. Pretty good. And I don't have any linking verbs in that sentence either. Let's go on to the next one. For instance, he is doing nothing to keep the suitors at bay when the epic opens. Instead, he is sad and depressed and he mopes around a lot. I bet I could do something with those two sentences. Now what we have here is another helping verb. Because it's part of a verb phrase, it's the first the first word in the verb phrase, it is a helping verb and not a linking verb. Nevertheless, he is doing nothing could easily be switched to the word, for example, the word does. For he does nothing. I could certainly do that, and it's stronger already. All right, he is doing nothing to keep the suitors at bay when the epic opens. Instead, he is, oh, that's clearly a linking verb. He being tied to sad, he being tied to depressed, because we've got that fanboy, meaning that we have two predicate adjectives. And he mopes around a lot. Okay, that's okay, but let's see if I can do better. I would say the Telemachus, presented in Book 1, mopes around a lot without taking much action. So I got the idea of the suitors into the previous sentence, so I was able to eliminate that from this sentence, and I tied in the opening of the epic by using Book 1, and I got rid of my linking verb. All right, I'm doing pretty well. Later, when Athena arrives, he seems to become angry when he sees how the suitors are with his property. Sorry about that. Let's see what we can do there. So we have Athena arrives, a good, strong, active verb, but here we've got a linking verb. And those seems are really sneaky because they aren't one of the top 5 linking verbs. And then we've got this infinitive, to become. And we know that those are problematic as well because all you're doing here, seems to become, that's extending a linking verb. So for all intents and purposes, seems to become is a linking verb. I could replace that whole thing with the word is. He seems to become, he is angry. So because I could replace it with just a single word linking verb, I know that I've got, for want of a better term, a linking phrase here, which is terrifying. There's another one, how the suitors are with his property. Now this is not even a good sentence, because how they are what? A linking verb is not being tied to anything. So we've got suitors here, we've got the linking verb, but then we don't have a predicate adjective or a predicate noun. And as you know, you need one of those. We just have this prepositional phrase. So I know I can do better than this sentence. So I'm going to say something like this. With the guidance of the disguised Athena, who inspires him to act, Telemachus calls an assembly and accuses, good active verb, the suitors, suitors of abusing his home and his family. All right, whoops, got to spell suitors properly. So that's a much better sentence, a much, much, much better sentence. Now, when Telemachus is finally able to, let's look at the next one, finally able to call the assembly, he seems like he is going to kick out the suitors, but they act up again. Okay, is able to, we can easily get rid of that. That's, technically, is the linking verb tying Telemachus to the adjective able, and then we have that infinitive again. But couldn't we eliminate this whole thing and simply say, couldn't we get rid of those and simply say calls when Telemachus calls the assembly? So that's a real quick fix. But just, there's other issues here as well. We've got that linking verb seems again. Seems like he is going to kick out the suitors. Now, as you know, this is a helping verb here, not a linking verb, but they act up again. Okay, so let's see if we can do better than that. He especially seems, well, seems is another linking verb, frustrated, when Antinous blames his mother at the assembly for the way the suitors are with her. There's another one of those terrible sentences where essentially we've got a floating linking verb and no predicate noun or predicate adjective to even make the linking verb useful. So let's see what we can do with this couple of sentences. And let me just eliminate some stuff here. Put this on the next page so you can see it. Okay. So I can do better than that whole thing. I'm going to say Antinous then, let me just make sure I'm in the right spot here. Uses a suitors. There we go. Okay, Antinous then blames Penelope for the suitor's presence, enraging, oh, great verb, enraging Telemachus and deepening his determination to act. Oh, that's much better. If I could only spell Telemachus. Okay, and deepening his determination to act. So I've got the idea of Antinous blaming Penelope. I've got Telemachus's action here. Seems like he's going to kick out the suitors. Okay, pretty good. And I've taken what is sort of a clumsy couple of sentences and made it into one strong one. And now our final sentence. Even though the suitors are still at Telemachus' house when he leaves for his journey, at least he is starting to be active in defense of his world. There's a linking verb. When he leaves for his journey, at least he is. That's a helping verb. Is starting to be. Okay, but now let's look at this. This is a really sneaky little linking verb. Even though starting isn't a linking verb, because the final part of this whole phrase is to be, is starting to be, we know that that is a linking verb. At least he, and we can prove that it's a linking verb by substituting simply the word is, because he is active in defense of his world. So you see how this, at least, yes, it's a linking verb, but it would be better than a four-word linking verb. So let's see what we can do in order to make that final sentence better. While the suitors remain at Telemachus's house when he embarks, ooh, there's another good verb, spell it right, embarks on his journey, his behavior suggests he will act in defense of his world. And there you have it. So once we get rid of all the terrible sentences, the magic of preparation, here's your completed paragraph. It's actually shorter than the original paragraph, and it is completely and utterly devoid of linking verbs. You can do this, boys.